What are the things you're looking for from the combine?
Well, I'm looking some of the storylines. We talk about our Big Ten players that are going to be involved in that. Max Bullough, there's been a lot of talk about him lately, just as far as his weight and what it's been. They want to see if they can get that down. Obviously, he has questions to answer about what went on leading up to the Rose Bowl. So there are a lot of fascinating things that are going on. Taylor Lewan is another interesting player. That Bruce Gaston is a player to keep an eye on as well.
Interesting. Well, we'll get the take of the GM in just a matter of seconds, but here's sort of an overview look at the combine. Remember, it's a 4-day event that technically starts on Saturday.
Yeah, so technically.
I was kind of right.
Technically. You weren't kind of right. You want to talk about people getting there.
There'll be interviews, there'll
Mike.
be events, there'll be running and jumping.
No events, first
stepping
of all.
on boxes and moving around
people
cones.
Pulling on your arms and
All
asking you ridiculous
sorts of
questions.
stuff like
what
that.
goes on there, Mike?
So let's bring in our guest now, Mike Tannenbaum, a former GM in the NFL, to help give us an idea what the other side looks for at the Combine. Mike, what's your overall goal as a GM attending the Combine?
You know, it's the next piece to the puzzle, guys. I want to accomplish a couple of things. First of all, really look forward to spending time with 60 players one-on-one or, with our entire staff. And I want to get to know what they're like, find out how much they like the game and find out about their character and get to know them. And then obviously from the physical workout guys, it's an important part of the process, but by no means the only part. And sometimes it'll make us go back and check other people. Were we too high? Were we too low? Let's watch some more tape. And now with the draft being pushed all the way back to May, it does give you the luxury of some time.
Mike, having gone through that process a little bit, I understand that you guys, how far back will you go? Will you go to grammar school if you have questions about an individual?
Yeah, Howard, I'll tell you, one thing I really do believe a lot in is who you really are in life, be it a football player or anybody else. Your true character is how you treat people that can't help you, how you treat the waiter and the waitress. So I really want to know how you treated the support staff. I want to know, the assistant equipment manager, the assistant trainer, the assistant video guy. That's what we're interested in finding. And if everything, checks out, we probably don't go too far back. If for whatever reason a player had a bump in the road, we may go a little further back and see if, hey, was this an isolated problem or, is this a pattern or something more significant?
I'm curious, Mike, your level of importance with physical talent, games you've seen in college versus character, because you brought up a lot of fascinating points about character, but also we all know there are a handful of players in the NFL who have legitimate character issues, whether it's with the law or with family or problems in college. So where do things matter in terms of importance, character, numbers versus things you just saw on the field?
That's a great question. I think it all matters. I think it's all important. Coach Belichick always had an expression, guys. He said, the two things you have pro football that you don't have in college is more time and more money. And look, we've all been in college and we've all had bumps in the road. But at the end of the day, is football important? Are you going to work hard? Are you going to take all the development that you can get in terms of, the weightlifting and the off-season program? So at the end of the day, it's okay if things happen in the past. We've all, made mistakes, but it's more about how important is football to you and how committed are you working at your craft?
Mike, two parts here. How important is the fact that the player answer the question? Say you know some information, you have some information about the player. You ask him to see if he's going to divulge that information or be forthright with you. How important is it for that player to really come forth with that information? And also, you really only have about, 5 or 10 minutes with each individual player?
Yeah, Howard. Well, there's a couple. We have 15 minutes in Indy, but then you can also bring a player in for a visit to your facility. But we always tell the guys that, look, especially in this day and age with the proliferation of social media, we're going to find out. We will find out. So be honest with us, explain what happened, and then again, depending on the situation, how serious it was, or in terms of is it aberrational or is this a pattern? We'll have somebody come in. We'll go to their school and. Again, we want to get to know how much they like football, how hard they're going to work at it, and if they've had a bump in the road, is it something we could work with? Typically, we would say, like on a DUI, for example, if someone has a DUI, that's the first time they got caught, but, have they had, issues before? And again, can we help them solve their problems?
You mentioned a DUI, you mentioned not being able to tell the truth. Give me some other examples of red flags, things that you're looking forward to avoid seeing or finding out about someone.
Yeah, well, I want to know how they handle adversity. As Howard can certainly tell us, pro football is all about adversity. Playing hurt, playing in a losing streak, playing in a losing season. I want to know, did you walk away from, when there was trouble? Did you walk away from competition? One of my pet peeves were guys that didn't work out. I always used to say, like, look, guys, we can't call Roger Goodell and say we're going to play in the perfect conditions, only on home games, only when we're well rested. I want to see people perform in adverse conditions like the combine, knowing that, it's not familiar for you. So, not working out was a big red flag. And then again, walking away when things had gotten tough, that was always a big concern of mine.
Mike, I want to ask you about a couple players that are prominent players coming out in the draft that are going to be participating at the Combine. And I want to start out with Max Bullough. Obviously was not able to play in the Rose Bowl for breaking some sort of rule. We know he was suspended from that game. What does he need to show, and what does he need to be able to tell his side of the case at the Combines? What would teams be looking for?
Again, honesty and candor. I know he was also a little overweight at the East-West Shrine game. I drilled down on that as well. But, again, I'd want to know what happened, why it happened, and how do we know that we could collectively to make sure that, those things don't happen in the future. Because, again, we're going to be investing a lot of time, effort, and money into you, Max, and I appreciate the fact that, you weren't perfect in college. None of us were, but, what was the issue, and how can we, again, work together to make sure that, these things don't happen again. And again, we would expect him to be have total discord, total honesty, total transparency.
What about Taylor Lewan of Michigan? He had such a great junior year, but those of us who watched him his senior year weren't nearly as impressed, and yet it doesn't seem like his draft stock has fallen that much.
Yeah, I think he benefits from, toughness, tenacity, a little bit of the Jake Long, legacy. Obviously, there's some issues there as well that we'd want to drill down on. Something happened this past December. So, again, those were things I would want to find out. But, by all accounts, this guy likes football. He's a tough guy. So I would think, assuming those things could get cleaned up, guys, I do see him going in the first round. But, again, it's still a little early in the process. And, again, chronologically, we're sitting here, the third week of February. And with, the draft being the first week in May, we could have a guy like Taylor Lewan. We could have a guy like Max Bullough or Kain Colter. Not only can we flesh out some of these issues here in Indy, but we can also, again, invite them into our facility, spend the day with them, get them on the board, see their football acumen, see their ability to learn, and really see, like, again, whatever the issues may be, making sure that we're comfortable. And, sometimes we would tell players, look, if you don't hear from us after the Combine, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That just means we're comfortable with all the information we have on you. And from a strategic standpoint, sometimes we wouldn't want to be associated with certain names. So on purpose, we would try to lay low. So I would always tell players and agents, hey, look, don't read too much into the process. Maybe you checked all the boxes, and that's really a positive.
Mike, you brought up the name Kain Colter. He's obviously been in the news talking about unionizing, particularly at Northwestern and all of college football. Could he be perceived as a locker room lawyer at this particular point? Would he be asked about that at the Combine?
Oh, he'll be asked about that every interview, because, look, I think his story is compelling. I have a law degree. I've studied, a little bit of labor law. I think it's really interesting what he's doing. But, again, in the back of your mind, you want to make sure, as you said, Howard, are you getting a locker room lawyer? By all accounts, and I don't know him intimately well, I don't think that's the case at all. I think this guy has, from what I understand, tremendous football character, loves the game, played hurt, played multiple positions. And again, Howard, those are attributes we both want on our team. And so he's certainly going to have to answer that question. Now, to spin it positively, you could also say, like, look, this guy showed real leadership, and he did something he believed in. For whatever reason, I'd ask him that question as well. But he certainly did not take the easy way out.
Mike Tannenbaum, former NFL GM, thanks so much for the insight. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.